Welcome to the podcast, Raw Lessons Revealed. I'm your host, Craig T. Ingram, coming to you live from Austin, Texas. You are about to hear real, genuine, no-nonsense business lessons from a literal liquid net worth billionaire. If you are in business like me, that should impress you, because in the beginning of 2024, data has been reported and released from very reputable sources that there are less than 3,000 companies on this planet reaching this pinnacle status in business. No one goes into business to make as little money as possible. So get ready to be impressed by one of the planet's most successful business entrepreneurs. With that said, let's reveal those raw lessons. Good afternoon, Joe. It's good to see you again. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me for a little bit. I think people that I know in my sphere of influence and circle are going to be excited to hear how, what were some of the intrinsic values and difficulties and successes you had in building literally one of the most world's renowned brands and companies. With that being said, I'm going to get right into it.
Okay.
With Reebok being founded in 1958, and then it was in a couple acquisitions, right, with Adidas in 2005, or Adidas as let's call it, and then being sold again, right, to Authentic Brands in 2021. What is your thought about how a company gets built and then has multiple exits? I know there's benefits, but there's also some, I would imagine some, this is my baby, right? And I'm kind of giving it away. What's your thoughts on that?
You couldn't be more true than that. Yes, it is. I mean, when you give birth or you found a product, a name like Reebok, you just can't leave it alone. No, I think the purchase of Reebok by Adidas was not a good one. Adidas didn't really want Reebok; they wanted the assets, and so they took the assets and really ignored Reebok for 15 years. And I mean, they bought a company which was just short of $4 billion in revenue, and by the time they sold it to ABG, it had gone down to $1 billion. So there was only 25% of the revenue that they paid for was left, and yet ABG paid $2.5 billion for it. So they valued its history, and they also valued where they could take it, which is excellent. The problem with Adidas, and they paid a lot of money, so in a way, you can't blame them.
Yeah.
They bought it, and they took what they wanted, and they concentrated on Adidas. They took Reebok out of team sport, and they also took it away from retail. They didn't get as much retail as it should have done. But now we're back with ABG, and it's very interesting the fact that they really have put a lot behind it. And what they've done is they've created the opportunity for people to see the brand again, because they have 370,000 outlets globally and through different licensees. And I think we're going to see, it's already there in a lot of countries. We're all going to see Reebok back again in the market and growing.
Knowing what you know now and looking back on the success of Reebok and what you and Jeff built, what is something that surprised you in a way that changed the outlook of Reebok's success?
That changed it, well, when to be sold, or?
Yeah, just like, what was one of the things that you did to change the outlook of and trajectory of what Reebok started to do to become extremely successful?
Well, I think as far as we were concerned, the family has been in the sports footwear business for over 100 years. My grandfather started in 1895, and his sons really didn't do the business well. They just fought. They didn't build a business. They didn't see where they could. They didn't bother with it. They just worked in it, and that was it. And so Jeff and myself, we saw the company was failing. The J.W.
Mm.
Foster company was failing, and the only way forward was to leave the company and set up our own company with our own ideas and our own uh, futures, and look and think what we could do and how we would do it. So we did that in 1958, and at first it was a struggle, as always, but
Yeah.
we found ways. We found ways to find some white space where Adidas were not, where we could go, and we could go into areas and make a difference. And that, I think, we that taught us quite a lot. Plus the fact that we had to change our name and we had to change our silhouette, but we began to recognize that when you get a problem, it's really an opportunity. And there was an opportunity to change direction, to pivot, whatever we want to call it today. But we did. We changed directions, and then we had the good fortune to get into America. America was, in order to again to scale the business, we needed a bigger market, and the big market was America. We got in there with three five-star shoes. That was our way to get to America. That was the influence we had. And then, of course, after that, we still looking for white space, and we found aerobics. And aerobics took us from 9 million to 900 million.
That's amazing. What was something that you thought was going to work as you were building this company? What was something that was going to work amazingly that you thought, right? But didn't, and you had to pivot?
Well, I mean, for me, it was getting into America. I thought that was it. Once we were in America, we were a small running company, and we would now scale and grow into a nice size company that Reebok would become a good size. We didn't imagine for 1 minute that we would become number one. That that came about because whilst running, I think if we'd have stayed a running company, we'd have probably got there maybe 10 years later. Where I don't think we would have become number one, but the I guess the good fortune we had because we were only small, 9 billion, no, 9 million. 9 million is not a big company.
Right.
It's a nice sized company, but it's not a big company. So the whole of America didn't know Reebok. Just people in the running uh, circles, they knew Reebok, but we were only small compared to Nike and compared to Adidas. But of course, uh, then finding aerobics and changing and actually pivoting from being a small running company, we became a woman's company, and that was good. Being small, people didn't know us. Whereas with Adidas and Nike, they were male, they were sweaty, they were whatever. We designed the shoe specifically for women, and it was the first woman's shoe on the market.
Yeah.
So so that was our opportunity, and I mean it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. The demand was fabulous. So in that sense, we didn't expect that, but when it happened, we took advantage of it. And then once we got to 1 billion, we were able to move into other sports, into team sports like basketball and American football and baseball. We were able to move that way.
Yeah, it's funny. You really came from a foot apparel company to more of an athleisure wear company as you grew. So I could see that pivot. That was a brilliant move. Absolutely. When it comes to your approach in leadership and team management, obviously you were building the company. You had a lot of employees. There was commercialization. There was operations. There was finance. There was strategic leadership and vision. Tell me a little bit about the habits and routines that you did to approach leadership and team management.
Well, for me, it is always to do with the team, and there's no I in team. So we we sort of built a culture, built a winning culture, built a community, and that community where people were not working for Reebok. People were actually part of Reebok. And we wanted to have that culture. We wanted people to feel part. And I think that is an added value. Rather than working for somebody, they're working as part of this brand. And when they joined us in that feeling that what can we do? How can we take this brand further and bigger? And so it is all to do with teams. And the team in the USA was a fabulous team, and we got some really great people in the company. So, but it does. I mean, everything really just relies upon people pulling together, working together, and you can't have all the ideas. The man that you might have the shares, you might have the control, but you don't own all the ideas. So it was always being open to ideas, bring them in, bring people in, and during the time in the early time of Reebok, I didn't have to look for employees. They were always knocking on the door. That they wanted to become part of it, and I think that helped so much. That
Yeah, culture is so important. Like you just said, culture is so darn important. And I find in today's world, as how business has evolved, and some not good evolution, right? And some really good evolution. I find that, especially in startups or early mid stage growth companies, a lot of leadership is reluctant to give partial ownership and equity to people in the company.
yeah.
And employees really never work to the degree unless they're a part owner. And I'm noticing with you and other people who have built the world's biggest companies and biggest brands, it's sharing the wealth in a way where you're not giving them anything, but you're giving them ownership in the company so that they take ownership in their results and their activities. What are your thoughts as our world is progressing and people seem to keep more of the equity and being less I don't want to say generous, but less generous in giving that partial ownership to people in the company?
Well, I mean, I think that's a mistake because people will leave the company if they find something better. There's something good about feeling that you belong, and and I think people need to feel that. Otherwise, well, your company has a chance of failing. I mean, these days, you look at companies like Tesla. I mean, they have grown because they brought something entirely new. And Musk, of course, he is quite an unusual character, uh, and not exactly. I don't think he's actually the best of employers, but he has built something that people appreciate and they like it. But I think with entrepreneurs these days, becoming an entrepreneur is actually a business in itself.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, because we know people. In fact, we've a good friend who's written a book about what he does, which is he starts, he scales, he exits, and repeats. So it's just building something to a point where you can sell it and then starting again. Whereas with the company, with Reebok, Jeff and I started and built it up. We wanted to build a brand.
yeah.
Yeah, and I get a lot of questions that MBA students ask, and that is the first one is, um, "What was your exit plan?" And we didn't have an exit plan. We- As it, but today it's what is your exit plan? And
Yeah.
entrepreneurs are being taught now how to get into the company, scale it up, and then exit. So, in terms of it, I am an entrepreneur, as it were, because we did something by taking risks,
Yeah.
but not a serial entrepreneur, which we see today. And so do these people value brand? Well, I think if you're just growing something or you're scaling something to sell it, then it's a different objective. We were building a dynasty. We were building something that would have a long time. The family business of family been in business for over 120 years now, but Reebok has only been there since 1958.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
We did. We were lucky. We were very fortunate to get a company which we could be proud of. And no matter who owns the shares, being
But
a being a founder, I will always be a founder of Reebok.
That's phenomenal. I'll tell you, my wife and I had such a phenomenal time meeting you, and learning about how you built this company. And we ordered your book, The Shoemaker. So
Good.
I told her, I said, maybe we should have bought two because I think we're going to be fighting over who's going to read it. She's a faster reader than me. So, but anyway, with that being said, I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And it's such an honor to have somebody of your stature, literally top 300 to 400 most successful business professionals in the world to spend time with me again. And I appreciate that so much. So again, thank you, salute you. Thank you for all that you've done for the business world, for people to model and follow in your shoes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very kind. And I'm sure we will meet again, because I'm sure we'll be at a number of JT's events. And we look forward to that. So look forward to meeting you again.
Sounds great. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, those are our raw lessons revealed to us on this episode from a literal liquid net worth billionaire, business entrepreneur who co-founded and built not only one of the most successful footwear and apparel businesses in history, but businesses ever in history. Thank you so much for listening and taking notes, so together we can apply those principles in our businesses. Please join me and our guests on our next podcast, where we have an international celebrity power couple who have multiple businesses, including a hit TV show that's all over the world, and the husband who is a superstar soccer player in Europe and the United States. And would you please be willing to like and give 5 stars to this podcast and subscribe for more and more Raw Lessons Revealed? See you next episode.